that doesn't mean that it's an addition to the mind. It's my mind or my will, for example.
Okay.
I might have certain characteristics, but that doesn't mean it's a multiplicity. It's still one.
Are any of those thoughts or actions that come out of your mind equivalent to the entirety of your mind?
Thoughts that come out of my mind, I don't know what that means.
So you likened the understanding of the attributes to your mind and thoughts, right?
Say that slower, I'm not following.
You likened the attributes of Allah to human thoughts and how multiple things can come out of human thoughts.
No, I was just explaining the difference between what is, something can be one and still have attributes.
Okay.
Attributes do not contradict that oneness.
Okay, but here is the issue with that.
Why?
Do any of the attributes of the mind, your mind, equate to the entirety of your mind? Or are they a part of your
Are
mind?
you talking about God now or his mind? I thought it was
It's
about
still
God.
my mind. It's still my
Okay.
mind. My mind can operate, for example. My mind can have attributes. It's still my mind. It doesn't become a second mind or a third mind.
Okay, so all of the attributes of your mind equate to your entire mind.
It's one mind. My mind can have certain attributes and it can have certain thoughts.
How do they relate to the one mind, is what I'm saying? Are they equal to the entire mind or like a percentage of the entire mind? These attributes of the mind.
I don't know what that means. The mind is not a material thing.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the attributes, correct? Of Allah.
They're not
Because
material,
I'm guessing
no.
the only reason we're talking about the mind is because we're trying to liken them to Allah's attributes. I'm guessing.
It's an analogy, yeah.
Yeah, as an analogy. Perfect. So my problem that I'm having when it comes to Allah as quote unquote the mind and his attributes as the attributes of the mind is because I can't see anywhere in the Sunni understanding of Allah where these attributes are well described in relation to Allah. So are they distinct from Allah? Are they the same thing as Allah? And since there are many of them, do they make up Allah? Or are they just parts of Allah?
No, you can't use that type of language to talk about the mind. It doesn't, even the way that you're describing it right now doesn't make sense.
Okay.
The mind is not like a box or like a globe. The mind is not a material thing that you can compartmentalize in that way. In the same way that Allah can.
Okay.
So when we talk about the Trinity, for example,
Yeah.
the disanalogy between the oneness of Allah and a Trinity is that the Father, Son, and the Spirit are three separate minds and three separate
They
wills.
aren't. There's only one mind and one will.
So answer this question. So can the Father think I am the Son?
So that's a matter of identity, and that doesn't apply.
Why not? Can the Father say I am the? Can the Father think I am the Son?
So Daniel, you've jumped a second. I am happy to discuss that with you, but before we do, I would like to have tie a knot around the attributes of Allah parts. Are you okay with that?
I don't understand what your claims are.
So my claim is this:
The mind doesn't have parts because you have thought or because you have. That's not how a mind is.
So defining a part as something that does not equate to the whole of a thing. Are you okay with that?
A part is not a whole of a thing.
Something that does not equate to the whole of a thing. A window is a part of a car, but it is not the car itself.
You're making a category mistake. You're thinking about a car, you're thinking about a material object, and you're thinking about compartmentalizing it.
Okay.
That's not the same as the will. Like, what is a will? So if I will to pick up this cup, is that a separate will than if I will to, touch him on the shoulder? It's not. It's not two separate wills. It's one will, correct?
It would be one.
It's
will,
one. Okay,
but
it's one will.
Distinctive actions, right? Now
It's still one will, though.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, when we
Your
get to
original point
Allah-
was God is one in Islam,
Okay.
but He has attributes, and that seems to contradict His oneness. And I explained that just like the will can operate in different ways, it's still one will.
Okay. So that would mean that the attributes are not distinct. They are all the same thing, simply actioned in different ways. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Warith, they're all the same thing.
I didn't say that.
But you see, your analogies are pointing in that direction.
No,
Because-
but so my position, and this is a broader Salafi position,
Okay.
is that when we start using this kind of philosophical language to
Okay.
talk about God, it will lead us astray. And I'll give you an analogy. So imagine that you have a cloud, okay?
A cloud.
A cloud, like a cloud,
Okay,
or
sure.
a mist, or a fog. And a fog, by its very nature, is indistinct. It is something that is indistinct. It doesn't have very clear-cut attributes. For example, it's a cloud. If you begin to carefully define the cloud in a very precise way, and you get more and more exact, and you build up this extensive definition and explanation and description of what that cloud is, then by the very nature of your extrapolation, you have gone further away from what the cloud actually is, which is something indistinct, is something ambiguous, is something that you cannot exactly comprehend.
Okay.
In the same way, there are aspects of the unseen, which include, for example, Allah, different attributes of the angels, different attributes of heaven and hellfire, that the human mind in its limited form cannot fully grasp and cannot
Okay.
fully comprehend. Now, if you engage in a kind of speculative theology to try to create distinct definitions and explanations, then according to my view and the view of many Islamic scholars, going all the way back to Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, or Imam Ahmad and others, and some of the Salaf as well, they're part of the Salaf, then you are going to stray or get further from the reality of what the unseen is and the reality of who Allah is. Do you understand that?
So that would all be valid if only Allah didn't actually tell you that the most beautiful names belong to Him, right?
Yeah, He's
So
described Himself
the mist
according
has
to His
actually
majesty.
described so in this instance, right, the mist has described itself to you. And now you're trying to understand exactly what the descriptions of the mist are.
No, it's very clear to understand these names and attributes of Allah. They're very clear to understand.
Okay.
Every Muslim reads the Quran, they read these descriptions, and they understand. To take a further step and say we need to systematize this and add further description,
I don't mean
some will do that. Some Islamic scholars will do that, and I have no problem. But a lot of Islamic scholars, and I take this position, they don't engage in that kind of speculative
Right.
theology.
Well, here's the
So
issue with
that's the
that.
difference between my position and maybe some of the people that you debate with elsewhere.
You need to engage in it because otherwise you have
Why?
to concede that the definitions you're given of these beautiful names in the Quran don't actually have any real meaning.
They do. It's very clear. Ar-Rahman. It's very clear what Rahman means.
Sure.
Al-Wadud, the loving. It's very clear what
Okay.
Al-Wadud means.
Now,
I understand that.
does it mean
We've
the
been
exact
reading
same
these
thing?
verses in the Quran.
Okay.
The vast majority of Muslims, 99.9999%, they read the Quran
Okay.
on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. They have no question about these terms. They don't need to engage in speculative
Here's the
theology
problem.
in order to understand Allah, to worship Him, to submit to Him.
I understand that. but
That's not the
here's
same with the Trinity, see?
Yeah,
The
again,
Trinity,
you're
the
saying
average
something
Christian
that we haven't
will
yet
read
finished
about the
over.
Trinity and will not understand the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three, yet they're one.
Okay.
The average
Like
Christian
I
will
told
not
you,
understand that.
We can get to that, and I'm happy
Let's
to get
get
to
to
that.
it. Let's
Happy
get to it.
I would just like you to come to a conclusion with me about these attributes. If you say that everyone knows what al-wadud is and al-warid means, right? Does it mean the exact same thing it means when human beings showcase these attributes?
No, of course it's thing.
What does it mean then? Because ultimately, the same problem applies. The descriptions are given, but we have no idea what they mean because we can't
You
even
can.
compare them to anything.
You can. Do you know what a game means?
Sorry?
Do you know what a game means?
A-G-A-M-E.
G-A-M-E. Do you know what
Yes.
game means?
Okay, yeah, for
Define
example,
game for me.
Within the word of within the English language, game could be a kind of animal that you
No, no.
hunt. It could also
Give
be
me
an
the definition of
event.
game, please.
It could be an event.
Don't give me examples. Give me
an
what
event
definition of a
that
game.
You participate in for leisure, usually involving some kind of competition.
What if it's a word game?
Sorry?
What if it's a word game?
Same thing, yeah.
What if it's a crossword puzzle? It's not a competition.
It would be because
Your
you are
definition doesn't
going
apply to a
against-
crossword game.
You're going against somebody else,
There are-
correct?
Your definition doesn't apply to all the uses of the word game.
Okay.
So you can understand the word game,
Okay.
but you can't define it.
I can. I just did for you.
You did not. Your definition of
We can
game did
define
not
game.
include many examples of game that I
Well,
could give
it
you.
would depend
You
on
say
the
it's a
category of what you're
competition
saying.
for leisure. What
Yeah.
about the Olympics? Is the Olympics leisure? No, it's for professionals.
No, but
What about the
it's a
NBA?
leisurely
What about
conversation.
professional cricketers?
No, it's not necessary.
It's not for leisure. It's a sport, right? It's a competitive
And that is
sport
why-
for money. So your
we have
definition
to-
did not include them.
That's fine.
So you don't understand the word game.
We do, and we can apply it to multiple different things. But the problem still remains with all of Allah's names.
No.
Are
The point,
there
you missed the
any
point. You
definitions
missed
that
the
we
point.
can give?
You can understand something without being able to give a definition. You can understand a concept or a
So
term
how do you
like game
understand-
or happy.
I'm trying to, but this camera's on my way.
Come around.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's gonna be a waste of time.
Okay. How you doing, Daniel? I shake your hand, but I'm a Christian, so I'm very happy on or something. But yeah,
We can shake the hands of Christians.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know who you are, but
Never heard that.
I'm just David. Well, he said it to David Wood apparently. You know, one upon a time.
about what?
Yeah, apparently, if you go into a Christian's house, there's pee everywhere. Apparently, according to you. I'd like to know where you got
That
that
was
from.
the response to David Wood's insult against Islam.
Guys, can I get some space or
enough.
you want to get real close?
It's enough.
It's
Enough
enough.
is enough.
Daniel, you cool with me being
I mean,
here?
if they can see that on camera, if
Absolutely
you can
see
just
me.
turn around.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so with the mist example, with the cloud example, the mist and the cloud being Allah in this instance, as an analogy, not in reality, they've actually described some things about themselves to you, about the compartmentalization.
I
of
didn't say the
themselves to
mist
you.
has no description.
No. So you said that the mist exists, but it's something a little bit abstract that we can't quite understand. We can look deeply into the mist, maybe know it's like a chemical compound, whatever the case might be. But we've dived so deep in that instance that we've lost the perception of what the actual mist is.
We've lost
So-
the essence of what
Of
it
what
actually
mist is. So Allah has attributes. If we dive too deep into them, then we'll lose the sense of who Allah is.
This is something that's generally in language. Many concepts, like in philosophy, the Greek philosophers, for example, want to define justice.
Okay.
Or you want to define happiness, or you want to define law.
Okay.
And you reach a point where definitions aren't satisfying and they actually tend to obscure the reality of that concept
Okay.
because of the analysis that you're engaged in.
Sure thing.
There was a period within the 20th century, there was a philosophical movement of ordinary language philosophers who said that this is a big problem with any kind of speculative analysis or philosophical analysis, the ordinary language philosophers. So this is, I think, a very deep critique of the entire approach of trying to analyze something that is so beyond human reason, or is so complex, or is so abstract or general. We can still have an understanding of those things. We can understand what law is. We can understand what happiness is. We can understand what a game is. We can understand it, even if we cannot give a precise analytic definition that covers all cases of our usage of that term.
Okay, sure. But then now, is there any definition you can give to Allah being merciful at all that actually captures the definition of what it means at all? Can we compare Allah's mercy to anything on earth to understand what it actually means when Allah calls himself either al-Warith or something?
Yeah, Allah's mercy is compared in hadith, for example.
Okay.
That Allah divided His mercy
Into 100 parts and kept 99 for himself and gave
99
one
for
to...
himself
Okay.
and one for himself, and like the mercy that a mother
Yep.
deer has,
Yep,
for example,
when he doesn't
not
step on
stepping
his
on his
baby.
child.
Yep.
So those are descriptions that are given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That does help us understand what this mercy is. Does
Okay.
that mean that we have a comprehensive, 100% encompassed understanding
Probably
of
not.
Al-Rahman?
Okay.
We can, because it's something that's infinite. It's something that is really beyond our understanding. But
Okay.
we can still get some understanding of it through the word Ar-Rahman, the name of Allah.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm glad you admitted that. The last part of this, before we can move on to your Trinity stuff, if you'd like, is then when you have all these 99, potentially more attributes,
Essentially more.
are they really distinct or are they just the same thing?
I don't know what that means. I don't know what
So,
distinct means.
are they the same as the other? So is Al-Rahman the same thing as Al-Rahim?
It's a different attribute.
Okay, so there's a distinction between them. They are not the same thing. That's all it means.
they're different attributes.
In the
that
same way
you
that like
say
my two fingers are distinct. They're not quite the same.
yeah, they're different
right?
attributes.
Awesome.
Just like
So-
you can say that Daniel,
Yep.
in some moments he can be merciful, in some moments he can be angry.
And those two are distinct.
They're distinct, but
Yep.
Daniel is still one person. I
Okay.
have one mind, I
Okay.
have one will.
Okay. Now, when it comes to Allah, are these attributes both distinct and eternal?
Yes. They're,
Okay.
they're eternal attributes. Yeah.
Okay, so there's eternally distinct attributes, and are they a part of Allah or the whole of Him?
Again, I don't understand this part.
So
saying that it's
you
one
have
compartment
Allah.
or another. Just in the same way that Daniel can be described as angry at
Yep.
times or merciful at times.
Right.
That doesn't mean that anger is a part of my mind.
But it would be. So the emotion of anger would be an emotion that you would feel, but it wouldn't be the whole of your emotional spectrum. So it'd be a part of it, as an example.
But that doesn't mean that it's a part in the sense of a part. You're equivocating on the word part.
So
That's the problem.
part meaning it is not the whole. It is not equivalent to the whole. That's all it means. You have an emotional spectrum. You can be happy,
It's
sad,
an attribute of me
gleeful.
without necessarily being a part in that way.
It's a part if it's not equal to the whole.
That's not the way that I use part.
How would you use parts?
As an attribute. As an attribute. I have the attribute of sometimes
Okay.
being merciful, sometimes being angry, without saying that is a part. I have a distinct part of me that is the anger part of me.
Okay, so it's a component
We
of.
don't talk like that, right?
We don't, but
Okay.
it's a component of without being the whole of. So it's a part.
It's an aspect of my personality.
Aspects and parts are the same thing.
No, the way that you're using part is that
Okay.
this is a part, like this is a component.
Let's use aspects. Same thing. Okay? So are these aspects of Allah really distinct where they are not one another?
I already said that. you
Okay.
know, they're distinct.
And they're eternal. Because they've always been there along with Allah.
Okay.
So, if that is the case, what you ultimately have is you have 99 plus really distinct eternal things that are next to Allah.
No.
So they share in the attributes of Allah in that they are distinct, they are not one another, and then they are separate from Allah, yet they are still also eternal. So
But I
ultimately, in a
denied
way,
that
you have
entire
99
premise.
gods.
I denied that entire premise.
But you didn't.
In the
They
same
are
way
distinct
that I have,
and they're eternal.
I have 99 attributes or 1,000 different
That are
attributes
created,
that I have.
right?
They're not. That doesn't mean there are 1,000 Daniels.
Wait, but your attributes are created,
Yes.
and they're not eternal.
So what? That why is that relevant to the
Because
analogy?
with Allah, Allah is the only thing that's eternal. Well, it should be.
Yes, yes.
But then if the attributes are distinct from Allah but are also eternal, that would mean that for as many attributes as you have eternal things that are really distinct from Allah.
No, they're not distinct from. Just in the same way that anger is not distinct from my mind or from my will. Those attributes are not distinct from Allah.
Is anger
They're
the
not distinct from.
So-
anger is not the whole of me, right?
so it's an aspect of part.
I said it's an
Right?
aspect. Yeah.
And then that would then
going in a
no
circle.
well we are going in a circle because you're not quite getting what I'm saying here.
That's
but
true. I don't get what you're
because
saying.
ultimately, by the thought process that we've gone through, Allah has His attributes, but they are eternal as He is, but they are also distinct, and they are aspects of Him and not the whole. So therefore, we have 99 plus eternal attributes that are next to Allah, but they are really distinct from Him because they are not equal to Him.
You're equivocating
So
on the
you
word
basically
distinct,
have 99
hard,
gods.
all of this.
Yeah.
This is equivocation. It's still
It's-
just like if I was, imagine I was eternal and
Yes.
I'm immortal. I won't
Yep.
die.
Yep.
And I have anger. I have love. I have mercy.
And they're also eternal
They're
as distinct.
They're distinct aspects of
Right.
me. Does that mean that there are 1,000 different Daniels?
So-
just because I'm immortal?
I guess this will be the
Yes or no?
This
Yes
will-
or no?
So this
Yes
will be
or no?
the main qualifier.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
The main qualifier
Yes or
would
no?
then be
Yes or no?
Do you think that
Yes
these
or no?
attributes are abstract in the mind?
Is anger an abstract thing?
You could say it is, yes. Because abstract to mean it's in the mind and it has no causal power.
Yeah,
Can
anger
we-
does have causal power.
No.
I get angry and I swing at someone.
No, but that would be the causal power of the swing, not the anger. The anger can lead you to that
the
point.
anger causes me to act.
Right, but anger doesn't actually have any real placement in the real world.
No, why? And this is
so-
this is exactly the kind of speculation.
Okay, wait, okay.
Leads
So
us nowhere. It
we
just takes us
we can
nowhere.
have things that are concrete, exist in reality, like you and me and these cameras, and things that are abstract.
Is anger real?
I would say it's abstract. It's in the mind. It has no causal power. Where,
Does any thought,
before
does anything in the mind have causal power?
anything has causal power? Arguably not.
Then how are we able to live? How can we walk? How are you talking to me right
So
now?
I would say that all comes from something called secondary causality that God has given to us. But as a Muslim, you can't hold to that.
So it's really God. I don't know what that means. Explain.
Before we go there, I think this can actually tie into
No. Let's stay right here.
Because it can tie into the
It's
Trinity.
very important for us to understand what you mean by nothing in the mind can cause anything in the world.
It can tie into a Trinity conversation actually, if we
Like
want
you
to
have
go
a
there.
will, for example.
Before we venture too far away.
Is will abstract?
1 second, Daniel.
No,
Before
answer.
you go too far away, because you asked me a question before I didn't answer, because I gave you 2 qualifiers. You asked me before that is the attributes different from Allah, yes or no? In the same way that your anger is different from your will, yes or no? And to answer you, I was just telling you that there are 2 kinds of ways that we can qualify things, either by being abstract, in the mind, has no causal power, or by being concrete, exists in reality and has causal powers.
No, but we don't agree on the mental attributes not having causal powers. We don't agree on that.
If you are angry or you think of a jellyfish or a flying dragon, it doesn't actually cause anything to occur in reality.
It does. If I think about a cup of coffee
Yes.
and I desire a cup of coffee,
Yes.
those are all in the mind. It causes me to reach for a cup of coffee and to drink it.
Okay, but you can desire a cup of coffee and get water instead. Right? Like the causal power, so there's a chain of causation that's happening within you when you think of a thing and perform an action. Distinctly, when we're talking about Allah and comparing Him to the mind, when you have these eternal attributes, are they distinctive? Are they abstract, as in they have no causal power and they only
They do
exist
have
in
causal power.
Awesome. So they're concrete because they exist in reality
No,
and
something
they have
can
causal
have
power.
causal power without being concrete.
Okay, so in your mind, they are abstract and have causal power. Is that what you're saying about the attributes of
You
Allah?
can have mental attributes
Okay.
that have causal power, yes.
So the attributes are the equivalents.
My thoughts,
Yep.
my will, my desire, that has impact on my body and how I behave and the choices that I make in a concrete way.
Okay, so you are. A moment, please, if you don't mind. A moment, please. So, just to sum it up, in your understanding, Allah has these eternal number of attributes that are eternal like Him. They are distinct because they are not each other and they are not Him, but then they are abstract but have causal power. Is that correct?
Let's say yes.
Okay.
What are you getting from this?
Ultimately, that's the problem with the Sunni understanding of
Why?
God
Because
and
I
His
said,
oneness.
imagine that I have these different attributes that are distinct from me,
But are
and
eternal.
imagine that I'm immortal. Does
Yep.
that mean that there's 1,000 or 1,000,000 different Daniels? No.
Not 1,000 different Daniels, but 1,000 different things that are like Daniel in that they are also eternal and immortal, and they're distinctive because they're not each other and they're not
So
Daniel.
there's not one Daniel. There's 1,000
No.
things like Daniel.
There's one Daniel and 1,000 things like Daniel. Exactly.
That makes no sense. It's just me who, in this scenario, is immortal.
So-
it's just me. One mind.
So you're
One mind, one will.
It's not just you. It's you and the things, and that is the logical problem. Sorry.
So this is
That's the
you're
logical
begging
problem.
the question because you're saying
No.
that they're things.
Yes, because
That's begging the question.
you admitted that they are abstract but have causal power and are not each other. So they
I
can
didn't
be
say
a
that
lot.
that's a thing, like a concrete thing. I said that you can be an abstract and still have causal power.
Okay, well you can't because in order for you to be concrete,
That's your claim.
If you're only abstract, you can't have any causal power. But just to say whatever you're surmising is the case, you now have one Daniel who has these attributes of eternality and immortality, and then you have 1,000 other things that are just like Daniel in that they also share these attributes that only Daniel should have. So therefore,
We'll say there's one Daniel.
there's one Daniel and also 1,000 other things that are like Daniel.
No,
So
there's 1,000 attributes of Daniel. That's all that
but
means.
they are distinct and eternal.
Yeah, they're distinct. Yeah, but it's still Daniel.
And in your mind,
it's still Daniel.
oh wait, sorry, it's still Daniel. So the attributes are still Allah.
No, the attributes of Daniel, these characteristics of Daniel, are Daniel. They're a part of me.
So in Allah's case,
It's still one Daniel.
you know how you used the word part just now.
It's still one Daniel. That's the
Sure,
point.
but
You're not going to get 1,000 Daniels just
Okay.
because I have 1,000 different
So
characteristics
you're one-
that are immortal.
it's one Daniel made up of 1,000 things.
No. I have
you
a
said the word
thousand
part.
different attributes, 1,000 different aspects, 1,000 different whatever. Oh, sorry.
So,
sorry.
no,
if you
no
want
worries.
to say
Parts,
you're
yep.
using part in this equivocal way. That's the thing.
But aspects insinuates parts. An aspect of me is a part of me that is not equal to the whole.
In the same way that me having the attribute of mercy or love
Yep.
doesn't mean that there's a part of me, like a part of my mind, that is the anger part or the mercy part or the love part.
Well, I'm not saying
That's what we started with.
I'm
remember?
not trying to tell you to segment your mind, because don't forget your mind is potentially infinite. It doesn't have any kind of concrete box around it, correct? So I'm not saying segment your mind into quadrants. I'm simply saying
What does
that
it mean to be distinct?
not the other. So in the same way that like I am not you and you're not me,
Yes, because we have two separate minds.
we have two separate minds, but also a number
Just
of other
like the
things.
Father, Son,
Well,
and Spirit have separate minds
Okay,
according to
so
Christian theology.
we can
That's
go.
why they're three distinct
we
gods.
can go into that
That's
now.
why it's polytheism.
We can go into that now, but just understand that by what you've just said here, unfortunately, you are admitting that
don't know.
Allah is compartmentalized
I don't think so.
and He has other things with Him that are also eternal.
In the same
so
way that
that's
if
real
I was
polytheism.
immortal, I didn't die,
Yep.
imagine, and I have different characteristics,
That are the same as you?
personality traits, that wouldn't mean that there are multiple Daniels. You haven't proven any of it.
Personality traits.
Yeah, like anger, like mercy, like being loving, like being charitable, like
Okay.
being insightful, or
Okay.
whatever
And-
aspects of my personality that there are.
Right.
They're attributes of me.
Okay, but
One Daniel.
One
if I
Daniel-
was immortal, it doesn't change that there being one Daniel.
as long as the attributes themselves are also immortal, or eternal in this case,
Yeah, there would be.
then they are the same as you because they're not distinct from you.
No, that's a jump. That's a leap.
Okay, so
Why would they be the same as me?
so they're the same as you in that they are also eternal and immortal.
If I'm not immortal, they're
So,
distinct from me, right?
Think about it like yes, they are because they're
Then
not
how
you.
does being immortal make them? So if I'm
if you're
not
immortal,
immortal,
yep.
I'm not immortal.
Yep.
My anger is distinct from me.
Yep.
We agree.
Yep.
Okay. But it's still one Daniel. Do we agree on that?
Absolutely. But you
But how
are
does making me immortal suddenly make it multiple Daniels?
because Allah, in the last case, He is necessary. Correct? That He can't be any other way. He has to be Allah. Because without Him, there's no creation or
So
existence.
you're arguing for divine simplicity. Divine simplicity is a position that some Muslims have, not all Muslims.
Yes.
You started by asking if I'm Salafi.
Yep.
Salafis do not hold the position
I'm
of
aware,
divine simplicity.
and that's why you have this problem.
No, there was no problem.
There is a problem.
There was no problem.
The problem still being, again, that your understanding of Allah causes necessary parts of Allah to exist. Meaning that either Allah is made up of things, meaning He's contingent,
He has different
or
aspects, different attributes.
the aspects of the attributes have the qualities of Allah. So therefore you have Allah, who is the God of the universe, but also you have another God of the universe, Ar-Rahman, another God of the universe, Ar-Rahim.
Ar-Rahman, or the attributes of Allah do not have every. They don't.
Every
encompass
attribute of Allah?
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so then that means that your position then is that Allah is Allah because He is one, but then He has these attributes that when you add them all up, then you get Allah.
Why can't you address the example of me as a finite being having different attributes,
Okay.
but it not being a multiplicity?
Because
of
Allah
beings?
is, very simple. Allah isn't finite, He's infinite. And you, as a creation of His, can be comfortably composites. It's okay to say that you're made up of
No,
parts,
but my mind is not composite in the way that you're describing.
but it's created, so it's not eternal.
How is that relevant? How's that relevant? Yeah, we should move on. This is a
You,
circle.
well, again, I have made my position very, very clear. Unfortunately, because of your thinking, that is the case. However, you said you wanted to ask me a question about Trinity.
Well, I already explained that you have the Father.
three minds and
The
three
Father.
rows.
Can the Father think that I am the Son?
So there's a couple of problems with that.
Answer.
No.
Can the Father think I am the Son?
What
It should be
makes
a
you?
simple no.
Well, again, it depends. What makes you think that the Father has thoughts?
Oh, so God, according to you, doesn't have thoughts.
What makes you think He does? I don't think He does.
The Bible. The Bible is the expression God is speaking, right?
Right, but it is
So
also
when God speaks,
Okay.
are those thoughts? Are they the expression of God's
right.
thoughts or not?
So we're having a bunch of problems here. The first one
yeah,
is
because you don't think that God thinks.
do Christians? No.
Or has
God
thoughts.
does not think.
God
Nope.
does not think.
God is eternally in the presence.
Does God have a will?
God has a will.
Does God have knowledge?
God has knowledge, yes.
Okay, so
But
God has.
I would
does the
assume.
Father have the knowledge that I am the Son?
Okay, so again,
Does God have the knowledge that I am the Son?
you're conflating a few things.
Why can't you say
right?
yes or no?
Because what is your definition of knowledge? We're using key terms here. See, again, right? So,
Proposition, like
Okay.
the sky is blue.
right?
That's knowledge.
Okay.
Water is wet. That is knowledge.
Okay.
I am Daniel. That is
That's knowledge. Okay.
I am the Son. That is a point of knowledge.
Okay.
Does God the Father have the point of knowledge that I am the Son?
I don't agree with your definition of knowledge because it creates issues, but even for God. With your definition, if at some stage the sky is blue, but then we go somewhere sandy and it's orange, what would Allah say the color of the sky is?
Yes, the sky can have multiple colors.
Right.
I can see that.
Wait. But if we ask Allah right now,
That doesn't-
what
that
is the
doesn't
color?
contradict my definition of knowledge.
It does, because yours is dependent upon things occurring before they can be true. So if
Things can occur and there's still a point of knowledge. Things can change and there's still a part
so
of knowledge.
if we asked Allah right now, what is the color of the sky? What would He say?
It depends on what the color is.
Right here is blue, but
Right here, yeah. So right
but
here,
in the desert it'll be
God
orange.
has the knowledge that the sky here is blue. Yes,
Okay, but if we asked Him what is the color of the sky on Earth, what would He say?
there's multiple different colors. If it's
Okay.
a nighttime, it's gonna be black.
And-
if it's if there's a sandstorm, it's gonna be orange. What's your point?
That's the problem with your
Silly.
definition of knowledge. I would say
How's that problem? What's the problem?
the problem being that nothing is true. Well, if God knows all true things only in a propositional manner, then there are certain things that will be added to His knowledge later onwards. For example, in the future, if human beings can teleport, if we asked Allah right now, can human beings teleport? He would say no, because it is true that we can't. In the future,
Right now, yeah.
but in the future, if we can, then something gets added to Allah's knowledge that we can.
No, God has knowledge of the past, present, and future. It's all encompassed in God's knowledge.
But you said
this is ridiculous.
You said by
knowledge.
proposition.
Knowledge. Can you understand the expression "I am the Son"?
Okay.
Can you understand that?
Then?
Does that make sense?
To move on,
I am the Son. Does that make sense?
to move on one step further,
I am the Son. Does that make sense?
I would define
I am the
knowledge.
Son. If you're not going to answer,
No,
I'm going to walk
no,
away.
no, wait,
I'm going to walk away. I
We're-
am the
we're-
Son.
we're gonna
Does that
get
make
somewhere.
sense? Does that?
We're gonna get
does that
somewhere.
sentence make sense?
It's
No,
ambiguous. It's ambiguous.
I am the Son is ambiguous.
Yes.
How?
What son of what? A person.
I am the Son of God.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yes or no?
Okay.
Does that
Again,
make sense? Yes or
from
no?
a Christian point
does
of
that
view,
make
it
sense?
does.
Yes or no? Okay, you
From a
can't
Christian
answer
view,
my
it does.
question.
No,
I
from a
answered your
Christian-
questions.
wait.
You didn't answer
Daniel,
one question
Daniel,
I asked you.
I
You
am
can't
going to
answer.
answer your question.
I am the Son of
From
God.
a
Does
Christian
that make
point
sense?
of view, yes. Now, let me
Okay, yes,
tell
from
you
a
what I
Christian-
mean
are you
by
Christian?
knowledge. I absolutely, yes, I am.
So then it makes sense to you.
Yes.
I am the Son of God makes sense.
Okay.
That is a point of knowledge. Can the Father have the point of
We
knowledge
need
that
to
I am the Son
agree.
of God?
We
Can
need
the
to agree
Father
on knowledge.
can the Father have the thought I am the Son of God or the point of knowledge that I am the Son of God? Yes or no?
Very simple
Yes
as this.
or no?
The answer will
Yes
be no.
or no? The answer is no.
The answer is no because of this.
Okay. Can
Knowledge-
the Son have the point of
Daniel,
knowledge I am the
Daniel,
Son of God?
let me.
Can the Son have the point of
Daniel,
knowledge that I am the
let
Son
me.
of God? Yes or no?
Very simple.
Yes or no?
Knowledge
Yes or no? Can the
is
Son
possessing-
have the point of knowledge that I am the Son
Daniel,
of God?
let's not have this
Just
devolve.
Answer the question.
Let's not make it
You're not
devolve.
answering the question.
I answered your question just
the
now,
Father,
Daniel. Then you
the
asked me a new
Father
one.
Can,
Let me
cannot
clarify
have
why.
the point of knowledge I am the Son of God.
Daniel.
But the Son does have the point of knowledge that I am the
Daniel,
Son of God. That
let
means
me
they're two
clarify why.
distinct minds and they're not
Daniel,
they're two distinct
you're
persons.
running on a script. Let me tell you why.
You can't address the script. That's
I
the
am
problem.
going to.
That's the problem
Allow
with all
me.
Christian apologetics. You can't get around this
Daniel,
argument.
I literally want to.
Huh?
I want to get around this. Can you let me?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Daniel. For your first question, the reason I don't agree is because I don't agree that God only knows things propositionally. I would say, with like Aristotelian philosophy, for example, that knowledge is possessing an understanding of the form of a thing without becoming that thing. That is how God can know all things at all times without them becoming a thing. God can know all about a tree without becoming the tree. So, in the same way, with the Father can have knowledge that He is not the Son without becoming the Son, and vice versa with the Son. But if the Father only knew things in a propositional manner, then at some stage in time, then He could say, okay, fine, well, maybe I can also become a turtle because now I know I can, because the opportunity has come to being. That's the answer.
If the Father had the point of knowledge that I am the Son of God, that would be false. Because He's the Father, right?
Right.
If
But-
the Son has
You're
the knowledge
presupposing
that
something.
I am the Son of God, that would be true.
Right, but
Therefore,
you're
they cannot both be
presupposing.
true at the same time.
You're
They're two
presupposing.
distinct minds.
Right. Here's the problem.
Right. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
right as in you're correct, but I understand what you're saying. But this is the problem. You're presupposing that God only knows things from a propositional manner, which is problematic.
It has nothing to do with propositional.
Your argument would be God
it's a
knows
statement
all,
about
all
what
true
reality
things.
is.
And
It's a statement about what reality is.
the Father?
I am the Son of God. You said makes sense.
Yes.
It makes sense.
From a Christian
So
point of view.
If the Father says that I am the Son of God,
That
and he
would be
revealed that,
untrue.
it would be untrue. Right?
Yes,
But
because the
my
Father is
point
fully
not about whether
aware
it's true or
that he's
untrue.
not.
It's about it's distinct because the same point of knowledge that the Son has, that I am the Son of God, would be true. If the Father said it, it's false. If the Son says it, it's true. So that's identity statements about the Father and the Son. There have to be two distinct persons.
And they are two distinct persons. We
Two
are,
distinct minds.
no, one mind.
The Son is
But-
God.
okay.
What is the Father?
No, wait.
So if you put Son next to Father,
They're two distinct
you're
minds.
saying-
That's the
let
point.
me,
What-
you know,
no, but what he's saying-
let me not have it devolve.
He says, "I am the Son of God."
Give me
He's
one
saying,
second.
"I am God, I am God."
Sorry, Daniel. Okay, well,
Yeah, let's go because this is going in circles.
okay, so,
You made your point. I made my point.
okay, all right, well,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
But your God has parts, unfortunately.
Yeah, your Trinity makes absolutely no sense.
It does.
Unfortunately.
If you read more into it, that's fine.
Unfortunately.
Well, thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. You heckler, get out of here. Yep. So, yep. Sure thing. Yep.
Cool, bro. So you had the
Okay.
with the Daniel Pikachu.
Daniel Pikachu.
What
So,
happened there, Dave?
ultimately, there's a problem that Sunnis have in particular with their conception of who Allah is. First of all, shout out to my Ustad Sig and the Paul Gia. Hopefully when they'll see it, they'll hear the shout out. Ultimately, this is a problem that they've identified where in the classical Sunni understanding of who Allah is, they are incapable of properly describing how Allah's attributes are in relation to Allah Himself. So, are they parts of Him? Are they the whole of Him? Daniel couldn't quite understand it. Daniel couldn't quite answer it. The problem is it's as follows. You have Allah, who is the one God of the universe. You have His 99 plus attributes. Very well. Now, are His attributes the same thing as Allah? Most Sunnis will say no. They will say that they are aspects of Him, which is the same thing as saying that Allah has parts. If anything has a part, then it's not necessary, because the parts could be other than they actually are. Allah, if He's the God of the universe, is quote-unquote necessary in that He could not be other than He is, but His attributes have to also then be necessary. Because if they're not, then Allah has contingent things that He relies on to communicate with human beings. That's one problem. Second problem would be, if they are necessary along with Allah, then now you have 99 necessary, non-contingent, non-abstract things in reality that are also eternal just like Allah, but aren't the same as Allah because they're distinct. So you have Allah, you have Al-Rahman, you have Al-Rahim, you have Al-Warith, you have Al-Haq, and they are all eternal, and they are all distinct, and they are all also essentially, by that instance, God. Then he tried to move on to a Trinity, and attack a Trinity as a form of identity. So the problem here is that his understanding of what knowledge is something called propositional. He thinks that God, or his God, can only know all things that are true. And that is a horrible way of describing God's knowledge, because then things come into being at a certain point in time. For example, before there was any creation, did God know that there was a creation? Ultimately, if you hold that position, then the answer will be no. Because it didn't exist, that would then mean that God didn't know about it. Now, when God created a thing, then He must have added things to His knowledge, which we hold is not the case, because God is omniscient. And so he attempted to then say that if that is the case, that then the Father should know that He is not the Son, and the Son should know He's not the Father. I agreed with this and told him that they are distinct, but at that point he kind of lost the plot and then he ran away. But ultimately I told him that what knowledge is possessing an understanding of the form of a thing, but without becoming that thing itself. Therefore, the Father can possess an understanding of who the Son is without becoming the Son, and then vice versa with the Son and the Father. But ultimately, Daniel, this isn't Daniel's area of expertise, and he just made a bunch of statements that are a little bit shirky, because he called the attributes of Allah an aspect, which are the equivalent of a part. So now he's admitting that his God is made of parts like a giant Lego brick. So again,
Thank you.
shout out to him for actually entertaining the conversation. It's not really his wheelhouse. He's more into conspiracy and other kinds of polemics. But ultimately, you can see that the folly in the Sunni understanding of who God is. And Daniel showed that firsthand.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, baby. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well done, baby.
Look.